And now, from the CFTK-TV studios, this is Open Connection with your host, Robert Pictou.
Welcome to Open Connection with your host, Robert Pictou. Our show today comes to you from the traditional and unceded territory of the Tsimshian people. Nutrition labeling became mandatory in Canada in 2007 on all prepackaged foods. Since then, nutrition and ingredient information has been listed on the food label. The Nutrition Facts table is meant to allow you to learn about the calories and nutrients the item contains and make it easy to compare similar foods. On today's Open Connection, we bring you part 2 of Dr. Patrcia Mills' Nutrition Talk.
Like a real milk or a coconut milk without sugar added. It's interesting, but it's just the simple sugars of the oats. The fiber has been removed from the oat milk. It's been discarded or used for something else. Multi-ingredient nuts and soy milk. So if you love soy milk or you love almond milk or walnut milk or whatever milk you like, read the ingredient list. 99% of the time they have added sugars. The only brand I found that doesn't is Elmhurst, ELMHURST, or make your own. Soak the nut and put it in a blender. Protein bars and protein powders. They are, almost all of them with very few exceptions, are very not good for our health. Not something you want to eat every day. Fruit smoothies. When you eat a fruit, the natural sugar in that fruit comes with a lot of protective fiber. And your body can take some of that sugar and break it down and use it even before it gets absorbed into you. But when you break it down in a blender, the fiber gets broken down and you don't have that protection anymore. And you also don't have the feedback of quantity. When would you ever sit and have a banana and half a mango plus a cup of berries plus a kiwi, like all in one sitting? It would never happen because you would get the feedback from the fiber. Fruit smoothies are terrible. Vegetable smoothies are another story. Syrups and nectars, like coconut nectar and agave syrup, they are full of simple sugars. They sound good, they're not. And ultra-processed foods as a general category. They really like to add sugars to our ultra-processed foods. So, a good raw, unpasteurized honey, a real maple syrup, 1 to 2 teaspoons a day, maybe a tablespoon, that's nutritious. It's got lots of really great nutrients in those things, but not this refined stuff. Our body doesn't handle it very well, okay? We'll have Q&A at the end, by the way, so if you want to take notes, the only thing I would write down is your questions, right? If a question pops up, please write it down so that at the end you can remember to ask me. So how do you eat your starch? I told you, I eat pasta, I eat rice, I eat bread. How do I eat that and stay in good hormone health? I've measured it on myself and my clients. We do this all the time. By the way, everything I'm teaching you has been proven in research. There's not one single thing I'm going to teach you that hasn't been proven in research. So what's really cool is they've actually studied this. If you take, let's say, a slice of sourdough bread or a cup of rice or a cup of pasta or let's say a bannock, right? And you buffer it with one or more of these 4 things, it actually improves that rise of the sugar in the blood. So it doesn't rise as quickly. It rises more slowly over time. So it doesn't go past that trigger point beyond which insulin becomes too high. And that is number 1, vegetable fiber. So vegetables are king when it comes to, or queen, when it comes to our hormone health. And we are all, even vegetarians and vegans, are seriously under eating our vegetables. And when I'm saying vegetables, I mean the vegetables with low starch, high vegetable. So can people shout out some great low starch, high fiber vegetables? Broccoli, asparagus, cauliflower, salad, every leafy green on the planet, that's right. Brussels sprouts, cucumber, or a fruit, but I like it. There's so many, right? There's mustard greens, there's radishes, there's kohlrabi, there's all of the family in the cruciferous, Swiss chard, absolutely all the herbs. So I'm kind of sometimes when I'm presenting, I kind of lose it, but I have a list. I did once a rainbow diet challenge with one of my health promotion programs. One of the people was able to have 155 different kinds of varieties of fruits and vegetables. We were doing the rainbow challenge. It was beautiful to see. So we forget exactly how many fruits and vegetables are out there, but the vegetable fibers ones, the ones that are low in starch and high in fiber, if you eat them before you eat your pasta or your rice or your bread, you will get a slower, better, like a better blood sugar response, we call it, okay? So I'm going to teach you what that looks like. Like in real life, what does that mean? The second thing is protein. So if you are eating animal protein, that would be any kind of animal protein. If you're into plants, that would be protein from high plant proteins. Food combining if you're vegetarian or vegan, but high protein foods, they have the effect of slowing down the sugar going from the gut into the small intestine. So it slows down that absorption. Okay, so it's kind of spreading out the sugar over a period of time, which means that it never gets past that point where insulin gets overly triggered. Okay.
Open Connection will be right back after these messages. And now, from the CFTK-TV studios, this is Open Connection with your host, Robert Pictou.
Thank you for staying with us. In the 1960s, the 7-country study found that people in Greece and other Mediterranean countries had a low rate of heart disease despite eating a high-fat diet. The main fat in their diet was olive oil, which is high in monounsaturated fats. Let us return the conversation as Dr. Mills tells us more about healthy fats.
Healthy fats. Did you know that your brain is 60% fat? Every single cell in your body is made almost entirely by fats with a little bit of protein. Your nervous system is lined with fat, and people who lose that lining, guess what condition they get? Multiple sclerosis. Fat is essential. Did you know that in order to make your sex hormones, estrogen, progesterone, testosterone, and cortisol, you need fat and protein? Studies that put people on very low-fat diets, guess what happened to the participants? Their risk of dying went up from every single disease. Why? Because the building block of your body got deprived. So just like everything we're talking about, it's about staying in the Goldilocks zone, not too little, not too much. How many tablespoons of olive oil do the Mediterranean people eat a day? Between 4 and 8. Guess what? Fat does not trigger insulin. However, I'm going to talk about the wrong kind of fat so that you don't accidentally start eating that in too large quantities. Like, see, I have to be like, go this way, but don't go too much that way. But, it's like finding the middle way. Okay, so I'm going to teach you which fats you should eat. And vinegar. Vinegar is so cool. Vinegar has been studied in non-diabetics and diabetics and been shown in both that when you add a bit of vinegar to your diet, to that meal, to that healthy vegetable, you actually get a better blood sugar response. They don't quite understand why. There's some mechanisms there, but we might as well use it to our advantage. And just to show you, this is a study published in 2020, so relatively new. We are not taught this in medical school. The reason I went into functional medicine is because my loved ones got sick and medical training did not provide me with enough information to understand why. ALS, Parkinson's, cancer, all those things. And now I understand why. Because I did additional training and the research is there. Postprandial, after eating, glucose, insulin, and incretin. Incretin is satisfaction hormone. How satisfied are you with your meal? They differ by the test meal macronutrient ingestion sequence. What does that mean? When you eat vegetable, protein, and fats before your carbs, your blood sugar response and your insulin response is better. They specifically studied this. So this is all evidence-based. It's called the pattern study. So at the end, I'm going to teach you how to put all of these together, okay, like how to build a meal. But for now, I still want to get into the nitty-gritty because we need to teach you how to reduce inflammation by not eating. So I told you which foods you should eat, right? And how to combine them. Now I'm going to teach you the foods that you should take off your plate. And these foods have been proven in research to cause inflammation in the body, period, full stop, in the human body, not just in animals, in the human body. Foods and drinks can actually trigger inflammation in the body because they cause damage to the lining of the gut or our gut microbiome, which are those organisms living in our gut. A healthy community supports our healthy bodily function. When they are harmed, our bodily function suffers. For example, did you know that the fiber that you're eating gets broken down eventually after it does its protective job in the small intestine? It goes into the large intestine, and the bacteria and the fungi eat the fiber, and the result is short-chain fatty acids or ketones. So if anyone's heard of ketones being really good for you, you are supplied with ketones from your healthy gut microbiome eating your healthy fiber. And the fiber in the large intestine after the small intestine, it helps you detoxify your estrogen. So as we go through our different stages of life as women and we're producing estrogen, we need to also get rid of it so it doesn't build up and get too high and toxic. Breast cancer, colon cancer, uterus, ovarian cancers, cervical cancers, hormone-sensitive cancers, men as well, it's necessary to have a healthy gut microbiome. It's called the estrobolome, estrogen biome. And when we eat things that harm our gut lining, harm our microbiome, and cause inflammation in our body, we suffer. We suffer very, very badly. So inflammatory foods include simple sugars. So simple sugars don't just spike our insulin, they feed the yeast in our gut, and we get yeast overgrowth, and that's inflammatory. Ultra-processed foods have additives that harm our gut microbiome and actually have been proven in humans to cause inflammation in the lining of the gut.
Open Connection will be right back after these messages. And now, from the CFTK-TV studios, this is Open Connection with your host, Robert Pictou.
Welcome back to Open Connection. During World War II, butter shortages and improvements in manufacturing led to margarine becoming more popular than butter. By the 1970s, Canadians were eating about 10 pounds of margarine per person per year. Let us return the conversation as Dr. Mills tells us more about ultra-processed foods.
Excessive alcohol, excessive caffeine, and then the bad fats. Margarine, if you're still eating margarine, please throw it out. Don't wait until you're done and switch to another oil. After that, just throw it out and buy the healthy oil. It's so inflammatory, it's actually not allowed anymore. They cannot sell margarine the way that it used to be made, but there's a limit below which it's allowed, so there's a cutoff. So ultra-processed foods, some of them still have what are called trans fatty acids. But the one that is so prevalent in today's society is it sounds healthy. Vegetable seed oil sounds healthy, right? Comes from vegetables, it should be healthy. No, the healthy oils that we have been eating, the liquid oils at room temperature that we use for cooking and things like that, historically come from fruit flesh. Olives are fruits, and the flesh of olives have these high fat, and you can squeeze it out, right? You can squeeze the oil out. Avocado is a fruit. It's a very oily fruit. We can squeeze it out. Coconut oil, it can squeeze it out. You can get those oils out without chemical processes. Then the industry about 60 years ago looked and said, wow, there's all of these seeds left over. How can we use this and not throw it out and not let it go to waste? So they played around with it, and they found that if they took seeds from like rapeseed to make canola oil or corn, soybeans, sunflower, safflower, grape seed, all of these vegetable seeds, and they used chemicals to extract the oil, they could actually get oil pretty cheaply. The problem is that these oils are high in what's called omega-6 fatty acids, and all you need to know about omega-6 fatty acids is that when you consume these oils, the amount of omega-6 fatty acids goes up in your tissues. You can measure it with a blood test, and when they've measured it in people, what they found was that people, first of all, about 90% of Canadians have too much omega-6 in their body. And when they looked at those outcomes compared to health outcomes, they found that high omega-6 is linked to obesity and breast cancer. I'm going to highlight something really important here. When we didn't know about this, vegetable seed oils became very popular because they're cheaper. They said that they were better to cook with because it had a lower smoke point, right? A higher smoke point, so it would take longer for it to go bad when you're heating it. That's not true. Olive oil is just as safe to cook with, if not better. You can bake with it up until about 400 degrees. You can saute with it. You can even deep fry with it. I wouldn't recommend it, but it's actually better to do that than with vegetable seed oils. And it's become so pervasive in our culture that it's kind of corrupted. So bannock, it's a historically traditional food, super nutritious, right? So much of our history tied up with it in Canada. And it's amazing to me that if you look at how bannock was traditionally made, they did not make it with vegetable seed oils. And it was not made with heavily refined white flour. It was a totally different food until we slipped in the white flours from processing and we slipped in the vegetable seed oils. Now, who here has someone in their family, and it's not just bannock, but it's all the ultra-processed foods, all of the restaurants, most cooking oils in people's homes. Who here has somebody who has died from cancer? Who here knows somebody who's suffering from obesity? Right? We have root causes that's in our homes, has infiltrated into our traditions and our cultures, and it is up to us to have a revolution and to kick that stuff out and to reclaim our health. And it's so simple. We need to go back to our traditional fats, to our traditional cooking, right? So the time-tested olive oils and coconut oils and avocado oils, and even cooking with like animal fat is infinitely better than cooking with margarine or vegetable seed oils, okay? Infinitely better.
Open Connection will be right back after these messages. And now, from the CFTK-TV studios, this is Open Connection with your host, Robert Pictou.
Canada's first food guide was introduced in 1942 to help Canadians make healthy food choices during wartime rationing. However, it wasn't until 2003 that the Canadian government made it mandatory for most prepackaged foods to include nutrition facts table. In this final segment of Open Connection, Dr. Mills tells us the importance of the food label.
So you need to learn how to read your food labels and start shifting your food choices from ones that have these simple sugars hidden in them and these vegetable seed oils, which again, I challenge you to find a pasta. I found one in No Frills, 2 in Safeway that don't have vegetable seed oil or an added sugar in them, okay? And they are affordable. It's just you have to find them and you have to look at the food labels and actually read them. Lastly, and so importantly, is hormone building blocks. You need carbohydrates, protein, fat, minerals, vitamins, and phytonutrients, which are these special nutrients that come from plants. You can only get them from plants. They are what provide color to the plants, and each one of them has a special function in your body because we have co-evolved with plants. And we cannot separate ourselves from plants and still expect to have good health. So we need those nutrients. Protein is interesting because there's a lot of debate these days. Am I eating enough protein or is it too much protein? What we do know is that we're pretty good at adding protein to our dinners. We're not so good at having protein with our breakfasts, and we're so with our lunch. And usually the focus, if I'm gonna ask you that for this period on, for the first little while, focus on your breakfast. So I'm gonna be talking about breakfast because if you get breakfast right, you actually, the research shows that if I give you a really, really great balanced breakfast, the way I'm going to teach you how to do it, even if you eat a kind of a crappy lunch and dinner, your blood sugar response will be better. So it's like setting yourself up in the morning will really improve your journey through the day. So if you're going to do protein, it looks like getting about 20 to 30 grams per meal, or you can do rule of palm, which is the size of your palm. Okay? Bigger people need more protein than smaller people. If you're someone who's very physically active, like lifting weights, you could be more on the 30 gram side. If you're not, 20 grams. But I bet you if you count up how much protein you're having for breakfast, with few exceptions, you're probably not hitting that target. We are eating very sweet breakfasts. We need to switch to savory. Traditionally, we ate savory breakfasts. We need to go back to that. If you're going to eat meat, choose happy outdoor animals if you can, okay? Their tissues are inflamed if they're not raised outside in sunlight. You don't want to get their inflammation. And with plants, proper preparation and food combining. So if you're vegetarian, you have to learn how to combine foods for proper nutrition, because there are 21 different building blocks for protein. They're called amino acids. 9 of them are essential. You need to get them from your diet. If you're vegetarian or vegan, you need to make sure you're getting all 9, okay? A lot of vegans and vegetarians are getting very nutrient depleted. And they might feel good at first because they're cutting out a lot of ultra-processed foods, but over time their health also suffers if they're not paying attention to this. I could be like, there's saturated fat and polyunsaturated fat and monounsaturated fat. I'm going to keep it simple. There's fats that are liquid at room temperature. And then there are fats that are solid at room temperature, right? So what you want to do is, if you look at your total fat content over the day, you want about 80% of that at least to be the liquid kind. And so what you want to choose for your liquid kind is either an extra virgin olive oil, avocado oil, a virgin coconut oil, or a sesame seed oil that's unrefined, okay? Ghee is a traditional Indian oil where they take butter and they clarify it, they cook it down so the protein gets out and they're left with the liquid. They call it liquid gold. So I wanted to be inclusive of all the different cultures. Yes, that's right. It's so cool when you start looking at traditional ways of cooking and how that was really doing it right. If you're into flaxseed oil, hemp oil, walnut oil, and macadamia oil, what I have to say about that is keep it to a tablespoon or less a day. Switch it up so you get variety and eat it fresh. You can't cook with those oils. They're too delicate. But they can be quite helpful in small amounts. The cooking oils are, as I mentioned there. And then the omega-3 fatty acids, which are kind of like the counterbalance to omega-6 fatty acids. If omega-6 promote inflammation, omega-3 are anti-inflammatory. Did you know that there's studies taking people with depression and they give them omega-3 in medicinal doses, 1 to 2 grams a day, and their depression goes away, moderate to severe depression, equal to or better than medication at times, and really effective if you add it to medication. So this stuff works. Where do you get your omega-3s? Fish, algae oil if you're vegetarian, fish oil or fish if you're not, walnuts, and leafy vegetables. Omega-3s are in leaves, omega-6s are in seeds. Leaves and seeds. Fat, solid at room temperature, butter, coconut oil, lard, right? Those are very healthy in small amounts.
Thank you for joining us for this episode of Open Connection. The greatest distance in the existence of man is not from here to there, but the connection from his mind and heart. If we can conquer that distance, we can soar like an eagle and realize our immensity within. I'm Robert Pictou.